have all these books of these like really old stamps.
Go on.
I've been trying to talk to people to figure out if there's anything cool or anything interesting.
You definitely do, Matthew, and I can't wait to tell you about it. You have a bunch of different albums here, so I'm guessing that this is probably an amalgamation of a number of different collections, so let's just take them one by one. This first one you have is a Traveler Stamp album, and this is a really common beginner album. It's been issued and put out and used by collectors from at least the 1960s all the way up until today, and it appears the one that you have is closer to that early 1960s, 1970s date. As you're paging through this, I can see that you're heavy in both Denmark and Germany, and a lot of these look like old stamps, and a lot of them are old stamps, but there's a lot of late 19th century and early 20th century stamps that are not necessarily that valuable because they were printed in such great quantities, and that's the case with almost all the stamps on these pages. This next one that you have is the one that has me really excited. This is a Scots Brown Worldwide album, and it actually comes in 3 or 4 editions and covers the years from 1840, when the very first stamp was issued, up until 1940. This one that you have is the 1901 to 1922. I'm excited to see this album because this is the kind of album that I would expect a serious collector who's spending real money on their collection to have. And even though this one doesn't have a ton of stamps in it, it did not disappoint because you have some real gems in here. First of all, you have the Pan American series all the way to the top value. That's Scott's number 294 through 299, which is a really great little set to have, running anywhere around the $100 range. You also have the Louisiana Purchase to the top value. That's Scott numbers 323 through 327, and this set is also going to be right around $100. Right underneath that is the Jamestown issue to the 5 cent, which is Scott number 328 through 330, and you're looking about $40 for a set. But the best stamps you have in this album are these ones right here. This is the how.to Definitive series. And although many of the stamps in this series are the lower values, you actually have the $2 value, Scott number 312, which is a $200 stamp, as well as the 50 cent, which again is right around a $40 stamp. All of these are fantastic US stamps to have, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about how it impacts the overall value of your collection at the end of the video. This next one is a mildew damaged stock book that has a couple of Russian stamps in it, and does have some very pretty stamps, although there's nothing in there that jumped out at me as being really super valuable. Although you do have the really interesting Apollo and Soyuz edition, which was a joint issue by the US, who have their stamp as number 1569 and 1570, and Russia has the same exact stamp except with Russian characters on it as Russian number 4339 and 4340, and they make a gorgeous pair if you want to mount them together in an album of either Russia or the United States. You round out your albums with the Statesman Worldwide, which, much like the very first one, really doesn't have anything that really jumped out at me as being super interesting in it, and that damage is definitely going to make it difficult in order to sell this to a dealer. You also have this box full of envelopes that have stamps in it that you see with almost every single collection that you buy, and I have yet to find a single halfway decent stamp that was stored in a plastic baggie. You finish off with a small pile of covers. Most of them are going to be first day covers that hold fairly little value because they are very widely produced in the ones that you have, but you do have this one that was mailed from Pennsylvania to North Carolina circa the 1870s that is not super valuable, but it's definitely the type of postal history that you should be looking for, and in that stack of covers, if you have anything else that is of similar vintage to this, it's definitely worth having it to get looked at. The bottom line on this collection is that everything in here is pretty much insignificant compared to that one Scots Brown album. If you were to put everything aside from that Scots into one big lot and sell it together on eBay or another forum, I would expect you to receive maybe somewhere in the $75 to $125 range if you got lucky, and it might even go as low as $50 on a bad day or $150 on a good day. The Scots Brown is another matter entirely. This is a premium album with a collector who definitely spent some money in order to acquire stamps from stamp dealers in order to fill up that US page. And because those stamps are so good, it's definitely worth having a professional dealer take a look through the rest of that book, because even if there are just a few stamps in there, those few stamps are probably going to hold almost all of the value. As with just paging through all the rest of these, you can see on these first 2 pages of the US that you showed me out of that Scots Brown, you're talking about almost $400 in catalog value. Now, those stamps all need to be checked for what kind of condition and centering they have in them, but you definitely have something that's worth investigating further. As always, if you like these videos, please remember that I can't do them if you don't submit me your collection to take a look at.